Everyone, this is Nikachu, Merfolk Master. I'm here in Taipei. I'm here to play at the Grand Prix Taipei at the Expo Dome. Don't know if you can see it. This giant, wonderful convention center. Just got my breakfast, coffee, cold coffee, and some sandwiches. I eat a lot of these breakfast sandwiches here in Taipei. I've got a large variety of food, though, you can eat in Taiwan. This Grand Prix is standard, but I'm not going to play in it because I'm not confident. I know all the cards, a lot of the decks have changed. I can't read any of this damn stuff. Everyone's going to be playing with Chinese cards. And for the last 3 weeks, I have not been able to play test standard, almost whatsoever. I'm a little disappointed. Maybe I could just jam mono red, the burn deck, and see what happens. It's only a 1,000 player Grand Prix. They capped it really short. But I decided I'm going to play in the modern side events. It's a better EV. I know I know all the cards, even if they're in foreign languages. So that's what I'm going to do today. So I tried to use the washroom because I need to take a shit, and there's no toilet paper there. So now I'm on like a mission to find some Kleenex. I see a 7-Eleven down here, so that's where I'm going. I'll take them all. They also pretty commonly give you baby wipes so you can be nice and clean. So I had to do some shopping because I didn't own all the cards to my latest list. I got myself a Thassa here, Thassa God of the Sea. I got 2 Grafdigger's cages, not the same Grafdigger's cages, but whatever. But the problem is I really fucked myself. I need boomerangs, I don't have boomerangs, and I wasn't even sure if I was going to play Modern this weekend before I left for Taipei 3 weeks ago. And I was really rushed. I had no time to go to the local game store to get the boomerangs. I know those are hard to find, but I wasn't sure if I was even going to play Modern, so I didn't go to get boomerangs. And well, here I am, no boomerangs, and I can't find them here because no one carries this common. So I'm gonna have to just gonna have to use Echoing Truth and hope that gets me there. But we know that Echoing Truth is not boomerang against Tron. You want to bounce their Tron lens. You want to bounce that blast zone. So let's hope it doesn't screw me over. Well, first round's in the books. I just got straight up crushed by Infect. I lost the die roll, and they went both games Noble Hierarch into Blighted Agent. And I just cannot, too much mana. They're attacking for 2 Infect every single turn, and I did not have the weapons to come back from that. Maybe on the play on game 1, I might have had a chance. They had sort of a slow start, but not in game 2. Game 2, oh, I got totally destroyed. They went turn 1 Noble Hierarch into Blighted Agent. Turn 2, I think it was like Might of Volcroza, attack with Exalted for 6, and then 2 Mutagenic Growths with Spell Pierce backup. I just got annihilated. But each one of these events is a 3-round event, and I'm going to play in 9 of these events over the entire weekend. So hopefully I can make some tickets out of all this. So some interesting things. Well, first off, my event this morning is only 9 players. So on Friday, usually the side events are very, very small, especially for something like this. So something very interesting, there's not too many vendors here. I mean, there's a decent chunk, but they're mostly brought like eternal cards. There's like maybe 1 vendor that brought standard cards for the standard GP. And there's a lot of English cards here. I thought I'd be overwhelmed by foreign cards, but there aren't. They're mostly English. I mean, there's a decent chunk of foreign cards, but there was more English than I thought there would be. Okay, so my matches were really long, lasted until the very end of each round, but round 2 I beat Is It Phoenix, got a little lucky. Those were very tough matches, went down to the wire. And in round 3, very easy win against Bring to Light Scapeshift. Maybe not easy, also lucky that round. They were counting their lands. They didn't have enough lands in order to win, and I dodged, I guess, a land drop in the next 2, I think it was 2 draw steps, and I was able to win. Nothing pretty and then in game 2 they had to mulligan to 5, and I had a huge advantage and a bunch of counter spells. So here's the interesting thing, there aren't that many players in it, and I suspect that the next Modern event is going to be very similar, and now I can really metagame my deck against them. I don't have my full toolbox on me, but I have enough cards that I can make some changes. I brought Tectonic Edges and extra Harbingers, extra Dismembers, I think I have some Spell Pierces, but the point is the metagame is like Tron, Bring to Light Scapeshift, Infect, taking turns, Blue Control, Is It Phoenix? What else is there? A very few decks, very, very defined metagame. So I'm going to change my deck up in order for the next event. So round one really sucked in the second modern event. I got paired up against Death Shadow Zoo, and as usual, I lose the die roll against the aggro deck, and they just completely stomped me. I mean, I had a little bit of game, but not really enough. They had, Become Immenses and Teamer Battle Rages were enough to get through me. There are a lot of announcements being made non-stop here. But the big problem is that I adjusted my deck, and now the tournament is like 7 times larger than the last one, which is not unsurprising, but I think for the rest of the weekend, I will probably just play what my list was before. One thing that I could say about the match where I lost was that I was choked on blue mana. I had this Mutavault and I couldn't do anything with it when I had Spell Pierce and stuff like that, so couldn't play like Harbinger or Trickster with Spell Pierce backup. So all the tricks that I tried to do to like a Wild Nikachu didn't work because they just bolted my creature. Okay, let's update the tournament situation. In round 2 of my second modern event, I was up against Mardu Pyromancer, which is a little bit on the heavy side. They were playing like Simian Spirit Guide. It wasn't Mardu Pyromancer, sorry. It was like Rakdos, Pyromancer. It was like Mardu Pyromancer minus the Lingering Souls for like Kalidas, basically. It was all the other cards were identical. And in game 1, I got ground out, actually. It was very interesting. I thought I was ahead. My opponent played like 3 or 4 Chandras in a row, Torch of Defiance, and I kept killing each one, and I thought, okay, like, I'm in control here. I've got all the things, but like each Chandra that got played ticked up, and it sometimes took me a few turns to kill these Chandras. So, I mean, they did a number on my life total all the way down to like, I don't know, they probably did like 12 damage by themselves, and my opponent hard cast the Simian Spirit Guide and had 1 token from a young Pyromancer, and it started attacking me down, and there came a point where I thought I was going to win. My opponent was at a really low life total, like 1. I got my opponent down to 1, but they played like Mardu Pyromancer. They had this damn Chandra Torch of Defiance. It was at 1. It ticked up to like, no, it was down to 2. It ticked up to 3 loyalty. My opponent played like young Pyromancer, played a Collective Brutality, drained me for 2. They gained 2, and I had 2 creatures in play, and I had 3 creatures in play, and I just couldn't deal the last points of damage. I was down at 1 life. I couldn't kill the Chandra, and the Chandra killed me. Games 2 and 3, I won. Game 2, I took the draw, as you should know I do, against Mardu Pyromancer, Rakdos Pyromancer, no different. My opponent mulligan put me in a huge lead because now I have 8 cards, they have 6, and I just had way more threats than they did, and they lost. And in game 3, it came to a point where I played very patiently, and my opponent emptied their hand to put an Ensnaring Bridge on the board, but that was okay because I had Cryptic Command in my hand, and I bounced it, and I swung for 21 points of damage to kill them in 1 shot. And then in my last match, I was up against Titan Shift, and my god, I had like all the cards. I had like 4 Deprive, 2 Cryptic, 2 Spell Pierce. The main deck Deprives. I had 4 main deck Deprives in my deck, and it was more than enough to beat them. So I finished 2-1 overall in that modern event, which means I've got like 300 tickets, which means I have like almost a box. So hopefully if I don't do too badly here, I'm going to win a whole box in the 3rd event for the day. And I should be in the money plus. It's a plus EV. The only annoying thing is it's a plus EV event. There's good EV here, but I'm gonna have to spend some time trying to sell the boxes later on like the secondary market, which is annoying, but I'm gonna do what I have to do. Okay, so let's talk about the event. I think the event is being well run by the judges. Everything's running smoothly. Venue sucks. I hate this bathroom where I'm in this almost like a park-like area. There's people all over the place. It's very public. The convention center has no private bathroom, or like bathroom exclusive to the convention center. We have to go outside around, and you know what? It's very public to everybody. It's hard to get. It's fine with the urinals, but the toilets are impossible. No public toilet paper. You got to go to 7-Eleven. You got to get Kleenexes. You got to get those baby wipes. You know, baby wipe is a way of life here in Taiwan. You need the baby wipes. You don't have baby wipes, you're screwed. We've got. Where's the airplane? Must be really close to an airport. Airplanes coming by every few seconds. But anyway, baby wipe, a way of life in Taiwan. In America, there's no trash can in the stalls, or Canada and America, there's no trash can in the stalls there because who needs them? But here in Taiwan, there are trash cans in the men's stalls. The men's stall, we have trash cans. So that's where you put the baby wipe. You need to put the baby wipe there. You can't flush them down the toilet. Not allowed to flush them down the toilet. You're gonna clog the toilet and screw it for everybody. Oh man, and it takes so long. I'm sorry if that was too much information, but that's my frustration with the venue. Hopefully I don't have to use the toilet again for the rest of the weekend. So I'm back to my hotel. I have no idea what the hell this thing is called, but this is the most outrageous, over-the-top hotel I've ever stayed at. This is insane of a 5-star hotel. We're gonna take a look at it during the daytime. This is the emperor of all countries would love to live here. They most certainly would. So the third modern event went well. It went well. You can't complain when you're going 66%. But in round one, again, I lose the die roll to this time it was Dredge. So I've lost the die roll 3 times in a row against the super fast aggro decks. In this case, a super fast, dangerous combo deck. And I have to say, I don't really have a whole lot. I mean, I did have stuff for Dredge. I actually have 2 Grafdigger's Cage and 2 Relic of Progenituses in my sideboard. But like game 1, my hand sucked game 1. It was like 2 Harbingers that Dismember, Mutavault, Aether Vial. Like you can't, those things aren't good against Dredge. Harbinger is like super overrated against Dredge now. Harbinger used to be very, very good against Dredge. Now it's just basically poop because it's supposed to tempo get you back into the game, but it doesn't really matter because they have Creeping Chill, so they're super far ahead. And it's not like it's getting you that much back into the game if it helps you at all. And then in game 2, I had a Grafdigger's Cage, but no pressure, and my opponent... actually, it was a little bit more than that. I had Grafdigger's Cage, and I had potential for pressure. I had, like, Master of Waves and Silvergill Adepts and Benthic Biomancers, but my opponent had Dark Blast, and just Dark Blasted everything away, and I had no opportunity to stick anything to the board. And eventually my opponent found an answer to the Grafdigger's Cage. Blast Zone, actually. They played the land Blast Zone. That's pretty clever because you can Life from the Loam that card back to your hand, so you can recurse it a million times. That's pretty smart. Smart by the Dredge player. My Dredge opponent was very good. So I lost that one. Round 2, you hear the frogs? Shout out to the frogs if you can hear them. Round 2, I was up against Is It Phoenix. I was very close to losing twice. The match went to 3 rounds. I was very close to losing in the matches that I won. Can't help but feel like maybe my opponent could have sequenced their Serum Visions, their Ops, fetched at the right time before they scry. I don't know. Probably there was some improvement for my opponent. The one match that I did lose, my opponent had 3 Thing in the Ices on the battlefield. And the thing that really crippled me in actually most of the games is they really attacked the Aether Vials. That was really hard on me with Echoing Truth and Shattering Spree. So that put my opponent in a very good position to win the matches, but I ended up prevailing anyway, especially in the last game. Those Mutavaults, I'm telling you, got to side out Mutavault, at least one Mutavault against Is It Phoenix. It's really clunky, it's awful, you don't want Mutavault, it's not where you want to be. Because in the games, another reason those games were so close was because the Mutavault mana did not let me cast my damn spells. Can't cast my fucking spells. Can only cast, like I can't play Lord of Atlantis and hold up Deprive. Just can't do it. But anyway, I beat Is It Phoenix, and then the last round I played against Grixis Death Shadow, and I just absolutely crushed Grixis Death Shadow. We know it's a good matchup. It was even better because my opponent kept a no lander in game 1 and didn't really get there. Found a land a little too late on the draw, but we were too far ahead. And game 2 was just we played a game of Magic, but in the end I won. what can I say? They eventually put themselves in a situation. They were very low on life. I think it was like 7 or something, and they tapped out, played two Gurmag Anglers, but tapped out and played an Island Walker attack for 7. So that's how that went. So overall, the record for the day is 6-3, 66%. You can't complain. I earned a box today. I think I spent like 100 Canadian dollars, and I have a box and 40 extra ticks. So I'm ahead in the money, and so long as I make a box a day, I'm going to be ahead. It's not a problem. I'm trying to make prizes here, but hopefully I can go 3-0 in at least one of these, especially the first one. It's a double up every day at the beginning of the day. The morning double, or the 12 o'clock double up. And if I can win one of those, then I get 600 points. That's basically almost 2 boxes, and I can free roll for the rest of the weekend, and then try to get into the gravy. But so here's an interesting thing. Okay, I was actually wrong about the tournament being 5 times large. I apparently was counting a bunch of standard players that were playing around us. The tournament was still small. It was like around 12-ish people, I think. I don't know, not too big. It was very, very small. And I can tell that the same players are going to be playing like almost round after round. There's a blue taking turns deck that's going to be there. There is going to be Grixis Death Shadow. I think there's going to be Dredge all weekend. What else is showing up there? There's an Infect deck there that showed up for most of the rounds. So if that's the case, I mean, I will sculpt the deck in order to beat them. Too bad I don't have... Do I need Chalice of the Void? Maybe I don't need Chalice of the Void. Maybe that's not very important. But yeah, beautiful hotel, beautiful Taipei. Look at this. A little beautifulness in Taipei. I can't complain. I really like it here. It's really nice. All of you that live in Taiwan, you're really lucky. This is a wonderful, wonderful country. You got the mix of sort of a metropolis, very heavy, dense city, but also at the same time, you're very close to nature. Nature is thriving here. You can like get really close to monkeys on the mountain, and you can also, what's it called? There's all sorts of bugs and vegetation, so a wide variety of fruit and stuff that you can see in Taiwan. But anyway, that's my recap for today, and I will talk to you tomorrow. So as you can see from like the standard event, all these weird cards are in Chinese. I'm very happy that I did not play in the main event over there. So round 1 is really annoying. I lost round 1 in the modern double up. I'm losing every single round 1. I was up against Eldrazi aggro this time, and they had basically turn 2 Thought-Knot Seer in both games. I had good hands, honestly. I had good hands, especially in game 2. I thought it would just steamroll my opponent over, but the turn 2 Thought-Knot Seer brought them right back into the game, saved themselves a bunch of time, then they played Blast Zone and then blew up my board full of Lords. I had them down to 6, and I had Thoughts on the battlefield. My opponent was at 5 life. I had 4 Devotion, and after I killed the Thought-Knot Seer, drew a card, scryed, and I think adapted, I could not... With a Benthic Biomancer, all those things combined, I could not find the last Devotion and end up losing the second game. It's a bit annoying because I felt like that one was in the bag. Game one, I had like a Vial with 2 Spreading Seizes. They didn't exactly have turn 2 Thought-Knot Seer. They played like Eldrazi Temple. I Spreading Seized it. They played another Eldrazi Temple. Played the Scourge thing, the thing that you target that gets exiled. And then on the turn 3, they played just a land. No. They played, I can't remember. I think they played another temple and played finally Eldrazi, Thought-Knot Seer, eating up my hand. And again, my hand was awkward in game 1. I had the Vile Bed and Island Mutavault, really couldn't deploy my 2 drops in a timely manner. But whatever, game 1 was it, whatever. But I thought game 2, I had it. And I was very close. I was 1 Devotion away from winning with Thassa. Now for round 2, I've got the bye. I don't mind. I don't mind having the bye. It's the big prize event. I'll take the free win, and I get to take a break while I'm waiting, and I get to scout all the other players to see what they're playing. Looks like there's a lot of burn today. There's some, is it Phoenix? A lot of burn actually, though. More burn decks today than I saw in all of on Friday. So, still sitting at 66% after that bye. I was able to clinch a victory in round 3 against mono-red dragons, basically. Had Sarkon and Koth, and what it came down to is my opponent could never put too many big bombs on the board. There was like game 1 where they played 2 not Stormbreath Dragon. The dragon deals damage, and then you attack, deals damage, doesn't untap till the next turn. They play 2 of them, but I had Merfolk Tricksters and tapped them down and tempoed them out. And then game 2, my opponent always kept playing Planeswalkers, but I kept putting pressure on them with my Merfolk, and they all died. Master of Waves put a lot of elementals. My opponent swept the board with Anger of the Gods, but Master of Waves stayed around, and I was able to put more stuff on the board to clean up victory. So I get another 66%er. Hopefully in the second modern event today, I can win the first round. I would love to win the first round, put myself in a situation to go 3-0. Okay, so first off, not sponsored by Ultimate Guard, but Ultimate Guard, you're watching this, you know where to find me. So round 1 went perfect. I was paired up against Burn. Burn's like the best matchup, right? And I was able to win. My opponent game 1 got stuck on 1 land, played Goblin Guide, which actually found me quite a few lands, and then played a Swiftspear, and they just really couldn't do anything. My opponent later said they had like 4 Searing Blazes, but couldn't do anything with them because they were only stuck on 1 land. And in game 2, I mean, my opponent mulliganed a few times. I think they kept a 6-card hand that had a lot of air and just didn't have enough burn spells to finish the job. And then in round 2, I also won, so I'm 2-0 so far. I beat Goryo's Vengeance. It was the black, well, basically Gristle brand. I screwed up actually game 1. I had like lethal on the board. My opponent had almost no cards in hand. My opponent had 3 cards in hand, 1 black mana up, and a Grizzlebrand in the graveyard, and they were at whatever, they were at 11 life or something, but I had a bunch of creatures on the battlefield, but not enough for lethal. But I had Deprive in my hand. And I tap out to adapt my Benthic Biomancer, and that's when they played Simian Spirit Guide into Goryo's Vengeance, get the Grizzlebrand, went through the entire library, and killed me. So that was disappointing, but games 2 and 3, I had it all under control. I had the counter spells, a lot of graveyard hate. I have a million counter spells. I have 4 Grafdigger's Cages, 2 Relic of Progenituses to beat those dredge decks. Came in handy against the Goryo's Vengeance deck. So 2-0 so far in this side event. Ultimate Guard, I use your deck boxes. The good deck boxes. So round 3 wasn't eventful at all. All I did was draw. My opponent wanted to split. Okay, that's fine, we split. It's not a huge high EV event, it's not a big prize event, and usually if my opponents want to chop, I'll let them do that. In regular REL, I try to make the people happy. If they want to play it out, I am always more than welcome to play it out, but in this case, they wanted to split, so I got like 200 tickets out of it. For anyone who doesn't know, 10 tickets equals 1 booster. You can get a box for 360, so that gets you some idea of like what the prizes are worth at these GPs. Now, I thought I was going to get War of the Spark boxes, but I might end up getting Modern Horizon boxes. I have to check the prize wall. Modern Horizons comes out today, pre-release, and the rumor on the street is that the prize wall has Modern Horizons. So I'm back at my hotel, and so the last Modern event was sort of weird. Match 1, I'm up against Black-Green Rock, and I just steamrolled my opponent. They did not have very good hands they didn't have they didn't have rock hands, they didn't have Dark Confidant, they didn't find Tireless Tracker, they just had removal spells and some creatures like Scavenging Ooze and Tarmogoyf, and we can beat that. And I had in both games I had Aether Vial and just a ton of gas. And I do keep in the Ether Vials. I mean, I shave a land and 1 vial on the draw against... Well, I mean, on the play or the draw against Rock, and, I still have the Ether Vial. I can still deploy creatures on a good regular basis, especially at flash speed, get around things like Collective Brutality, and it worked really well. Yeah, so just easy, clean win. Although my opponent didn't really put up much resistance, they didn't have the good cards in the matchup. In round 2, I was up against the Dredge player that I lost to the other day, and they just completely destroyed me. I had bad hands, I had to mulligan in both my games, and I just had creatures and lands, and that's just not what you want to have against Dredge. And I really stacked my deck to try to beat Dredge. I had like 2 Spell Pierces, 4 Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Relics. I couldn't see any interaction. And if you're up against Dredge, you absolutely need interaction. I believe I did go to 5. I did go to 5 against Dredge, because it's just, the hands were just really bad. I think I might have had no lands in my after my first mulligan, but yeah, just had creatures and lands and just got destroyed badly. Then in my last round of the day, I was up against Is It Phoenix, but the awkward. So there was awkward. Okay, I have one match win. My opponent has a match win and a draw. And in this situation, it's actually best for me to concede to my opponent, and then we split the prizes. Because if I won, I would get 100 points. My opponent would get 60. That's a total of 160 points. But if I concede, let my opponent win, they get 200 points, and I get 20. So overall, there's 220 points, and that would get split between us. I win game 1, but I actually forgot to de-sideboard from the Dredge match, and I ended up having like a Harbinger and 2 Spell Pierces still in the main deck. And the reason that I didn't... Well, I mean, I should have de-sideboarded after round 2. Normally, I count my deck before round 3, but I knew my Is It Phoenix opponent was going to time a lot. They're taking a long time to make all their decisions, because the deck has a lot of mechanics to it. So I wanted to speed things up. So I wanted to get into the game really quickly. I just quickly shuffled up, presented my deck, and we went at it. And I win game 1, mostly off of the back of like Harbinger of the Tides, Merfolk Tricksters, but mostly Harbinger. I was able to deal with. No, okay, so first they played Thing in the Ice, I dismembered it, and then they played a second Thing in the Ice, and I could infinitely deal with it with Harbinger of the Tides, and I very cleanly won the game, just with an Ether Vial, put some creatures in play, attack, keep everything under control. But then I noticed going into sideboarding, so I win game 1. I actually offered, my opponent before the match started, hey, look, we can split the prizes. If you want to play on, we can do that. But I'm giving you the option that we can split the prizes. My opponent has not been winning that much this weekend, but they're sort of on the roll this tournament, so they wanted to play it out. But I win the first game, and then I go to my sideboard and realize there's 12 cards in my sideboard, 63 cards in my deck. I call the judge. Judge does a little interrogation and says, normally this is a game loss for showing up with an illegal deck. But I was honest, and it's not to my advantage to have 63 cards in my deck, so he lowered it to just a warning. And then because my opponent lost the first round, then my opponent was interested in the split, and I said, yeah, sure, we can split. It was super fine with me, because basically it sort of looked. I didn't technically cheat, but one of the cards that was in my main deck from the Dredge match was a Spell Pierce, and I did use that Spell Pierce against my opponent in game 1. So anyway, I was happy to split with my opponent, and he was happy that the split happened too. So with that, I got myself a second box of War of the Spark, but I hope I do well in the double up tomorrow. I've been going 2-1s in the double ups. I really want to have a good finish in the double up, because I want to win. I want to take a bunch of boxes back to Canada. I want a case. I want a case of all these. I want to bring back like 4 or 5 boxes, but I need to do well in the double ups. I need to be able to win one of those double ups. So I'm going to see what happens on Sunday. Overall, my record for today was... We did play out that match against the Phoenix deck, and I won, but I just gave them the points. Anyway, good result. I'm happy. Everyone else is happy. The deck has been doing really well. My opponents are like, I'm surprised you're doing so well with Merfolk. Yes, well, that's why I am the Merfolk master. No complaints with the deck, and I will see how well it does tomorrow. Wow, what a day it has been. I'm back in my hotel. It's a beautiful hotel. Great bathroom. 5-star hotel, it better be. And I didn't do that much vlogging because I was talking to so many people. I met a lot of wonderful people, a lot of wonderful fans, signed a lot of cards, took a lot of selfies. They are definitely a selfie nation here in Taiwan, or at least in the Asian culture. I met some great fans. We got Nelson here. I see Nelson every single time I go to Taiwan. And Check Keen also gave me a very nice, googly-eyed Master of Waves Elemental. Thank you very much. And I met many others. So let's recap the whole tournament. I did very well overall. Let's start with the first Modern event, the Modern Double Up. I want to do very well in these Modern Double Ups because they keep losing the first round in the first 2 days. I start off well. Round 1, I'm up against Is It Phoenix, and it was like a textbook match where I'm playing very patiently. My opponent was actually also playing very patiently. They have a Thing in the Ice out, and I have no creatures. And they're not playing any spells. I'm passing the turn, my opponent's passing the turn back, and I'm like, okay, this might actually get tough. But there comes a point where I start playing some stuff, and my opponent is incentivized to flip the Thing in the Ice, but I am ready to not take any damage. When they tried to get the Thing in the Ice to go off, I dismembered it, making sure it would die. They play another Thing in the Ice, I kill it again with another dismember, and eventually just play a bunch of creatures. They just have a bunch of spells now that don't do anything. And yeah, so that I won game 1. Going into game 2, they had a very good start with like Thing in the Ice. They flipped it really quickly, got a Phoenix in the graveyard, and then hit me for 10 very early on. And I thought that I might be able to stabilize with like Merfolk Tricksters to tap down the Thing in the Ice each turn. But unfortunately, that I still was on like a 4-turn clock because of Arclight Phoenix. But I was taking each turn Merfolk Trickster, Harbinger, the Thing in the Ice, and Play Lords, and I was just 1 point short of lethal in game 2, and my opponent just killed me in the air. I was also able to buy 1 turn with Fairy Conclave. That was also interesting. I was able to buy 1 turn with Fairy Conclave as a chump blocker, but it wasn't enough. And then in game 2, my opponent played a Thing in the Ice. I dismembered it, and that was basically it. And I just played a bunch of creatures. I believe I had Aether Vial and slowly deployed them and attacked for victory. So round 1 in the double up against Is It Phoenix, that was great. In round 2, I was up against Bring to Light Scapeshift. Haven't really seen this in a while. It's basically the old Teamer Bring to Light Teamer Scapeshift deck, but it's splashing a bit of white and a bit of black to play Bring to Light because that means it's extra copies of Scapeshift when they want to combo off. And in game 1, I had a decent chunk of aggression, but not super aggressive. My clock wasn't super fast. It looks like I killed my opponent like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 6. It took me 6 or 7 turns to kill my opponent. Pretty slow, and I was only able to win because my opponent could not find a win condition. Couldn't find Bring to Light or Scapeshift, so I got lucky that my opponent had all the lands, had everything, had Cryptic Commands, tapping my team down, drawing a card. Wasn't enough. And ultimately, actually, I believe it was my man lands that did win the game. Because there was a turn where my opponent had to Cryptic Command. I had a Fairy Conclave and a Mutavault in play, and I had enough mana to cast them both. My opponent was at 3 life, and they played Cryptic Command, tapped my creatures, bounced the Mutavault, because it was a 3/3 creature. My opponent's at 3 life. So that all gets tapped before my attack step. Now I activate the Fairy Conclave, attack for 2. My opponent goes from 3 to 1. And then on the next turn, my opponent had a lot of cards in hand. I'm sort of assuming there was a Snapcaster Mage in there, or maybe another Cryptic Command, but I declared my attackers. They didn't do anything. I just attacked with the normal creatures, and they died. In game 2, I did not have any interaction, unfortunately. It was just like a bunch of... It was just... I did have some interaction. I had 2 Spell Pierces, but they just totally bricked on... there was like nothing I could counter. My opponent played like Secure Tribe Scout and Search for Tomorrow suspended, so they would resolve at the upkeep, and I had nothing to counter. Well, there was a point where they do play Bring to Light to win, but they have 3 mana up. I have two Spell Pierces. I pierce it, but then my opponent plays Spell Pierce on my Spell Pierce. Then I try to Spell Pierce the Bring to Light again. They just pay 2, and then I lose. Game 2 went to them, and in game 3, sort of a similar situation as is in game 1. I don't have that great of a hand. I don't have Disruption. I believe I think I kept like a bad 5-card hand, or sorry, a bad 7-card hand, but it had Ether Vials, it had Benthic Biomancer and Silvergill Adept, and so I knew I was drawing at least 2 cards, and I really liked the idea of being able to play at instant speed against Scape Shift. Because they've got sweepers like Anger of the Gods, and even Bring to Light can be considered a sorcery speed sweeper, so playing at instant speed is important. But I didn't really draw... I did draw creatures, I was getting a clock going, but it wasn't that impressive. But I didn't have any disruption, that was the problem, no disruption. So I was totally at the mercy of my opponent, finding a win condition. But they didn't. Or at least not in time, and there was a point... I think there was a point where I did draw like a counter spell, and it was useful. But anyway, I was able to kill my opponent in time. They played like I had 2 Ether Vials in play. They played an Engineered Explosives on 1. Then I attacked with all my creatures. It was like a Master of Waves, 1 Elemental, and a Mutavault. It was 7 damage. They were at 8 life. They cracked their Engineered Explosives. I vialed in Lord of Atlantis, and it was just lethal. I'm just assuming my opponent, though, just either had clunky removal, like maybe Anger of the Gods or something. Because I guess my key win conditions in the late portion of that game were a Master of Waves, 1 Elemental in play, and a Mutavault. So they might have had a lot of sorcery speed removal or no win condition. But I win the Bring to Light matchup. And then in round 3, we decide to split. My opponent wanted to split, so I said, okay, if you want to split, we split. That meant we each got 400 ticks each. By the way, 10 ticks is worth 1 booster. But we play for 1 match for fun, or 1 game for fun. My opponent is on Amulet Titan, and not just Amulet Titan, like through the breach Amulet Titan. I sort of got by that. But fortunately, my opponent did not have an Ether Vial, an Amulet anywhere in our game. They threw the breach a Primeval Titan, get a bunch of lands in play, get Teleria West. Yeah, Titan hits me for like, I don't know, I think 8 damage, because they also look for a Teetering Peaks. But because it was through the breach, they lose the Primeval Titan. So the Primeval Titan has to go to the graveyard. That's fine, that's good. All right, we can work with this, because I do have Deprives in hand. I do have a decent clock on the board. There's things in the way. There's like a Zuza and a bunch of plant tokens blocking, but that's fine. We can try to get through all that. So I do try to attack through all this, exhaust the plant tokens. My opponent uses a Teleria West to find... There was 2 things found. So the Teleria West was found to find Engineered Explosives. I deprived that. And then I think there was a Summoner's Pact that was used to find a Primeval Titan, and I deprived that. So I countered the 2 more important spells, and my clock was able to win that game. So going into Modern 2, my first round was a no-show. My opponent didn't show up. There was just nobody there. So I'm sitting... There was actually a bunch of people that were missing, but slowly over time, all the seats were being filled. And after 10 minutes, my opponent just officially didn't show up at all, and I won game 1. So that was a simple, easy victory for Merfolk. Going into round 2, That was the best match, I think, of the entire weekend. In round 2 of this modern event, I was up against Bant Spirits, and it was actually a really tight game by both sides. It was very, very interesting. Game 1, I got steamrolled because my opponent had Ether Vial, and I can't remember, I think I was on the play, but they have Ether Vial, I do not. And I don't really get a good clock going. They Pat to exile my lord. They also play the new wizard detention sphere creature to take care of, I think, another lord. So I never got enough pressure going on the battlefield, and they just got some things in the air and beat me down with a bunch of exalted triggers. I don't even think they even needed that much. They had noble hierarchs in play to help create a lot of exalted triggers, and I lost game 1. Game 2 was, it's so hard to remember these games because they were a real slugfest. There was a match where we were really dancing, because my opponent passed with 3 mana up, and that represents Spell Queller. So how do you beat a Spell Queller? And I didn't have Ether Vial. I did not have Ether Vial. I believe I'm just going to recite game 3 because that was like the more nerve-wracking one. Well, one thing you can do is you can attack, and if they want to play their Spell Queller to block anything, okay, that's fine. Then you can just try to play something on your turn, like Lord of Atlantis. You just upgrade the board after they make their chump block, because it's better than playing the Lord of Atlantis and they play... Because let's say I have a bunch of creatures in play. Okay, let's attack with all of them, and if they want to flash in Spell Queller to block and kill one for free, that's fine. They take damage, and now you can play something more high impact like Lord of Atlantis, which doesn't get Spell Quellered anymore. My opponent played very well to play around Island Walk. They never fetched an island. I never had Island Walk this match. I had to just try to power through my opponent's creatures. The crux of it was... What else happened? I was able to get my opponent to tap out. I played like a Benthic Biomancer. My opponent Spell Quellered it. Then I played like a Harbinger of the Tides and bounced a Selfless Spirit. I don't remember the game super well, but I do know that eventually my lords did carry me to victory. Some things that was very important for me to remember, to keep in mind, to keep track of, was to not have too many of the same permanent on the battlefield. That's where I would get in a lot of trouble, because then they can use the Detention Sphere wizard to clean everything up. Everything would get swept up. But it was a really, really tight match, and I ended up winning it because in Game 3 I was able to deploy enough lords on the battlefield that I keep attacking. I spell pierced a very timely Pat to exile. I think I also deprived a creature, but the thing that actually won me the match was my opponent attacked for 6 in the air when I was at 6 life. And I activated Fairy Conclave to block one of the creatures. And my opponent admitted after the match they missed Fairy Conclave. Fairy Conclave was there for me in the end for victory. So that was round 2. And then I was up against Tron. I was up round 3. I was up against Tron. They didn't mention that they wanted to split. I think this was their first and only event, and they didn't want to split because they want to win some tickets in order to try to get to a box. That's fine. But in game 1, I just got completely wrecked and ruined. I didn't have anything of a fast start, and I got murdered by just Karn into Lattice, and there was just nothing I could do about that. Game 2, I had a relatively better hand. I had, it was a 1-land Vial hand with Benthic Biomancer, Silvergill Adept, a bunch of lords, Spell Pierce, Deprive. Awesome. I'm like, how can this lose? I don't draw my next land. I'm never able to get this next land. I play Benthic Biomancer. I play Vial. I play Benthic Biomancer. I Spell Pierce a Sylvan Scrying when they have 2 Tron lands in play, and they cracked like a Chromatic Star to play the Sylvan Scrying. Then I play Silvergill. I Vial and Silvergill Adept. Please find me this land. I don't find a land. Then my opponent plays Karn, takes away my Ether Vial. I killed the Karn with my Silvergill Adept and Benthic Biomancer, but they just play... I think it was a... they played the baby Karn, the creator Karn. And now they start digging for cards. They start digging for good stuff. And I'm just like, don't have enough mana. I did get the second blue, but it was just a bit too late. And eventually I'm basically locked out. They found like a Walking Ballista and an Ugin, and it was miserable. So I lost round 3 to Tron. So I didn't have Boomerang, and no Boomerang. It didn't even matter though. Because the thing is, in the side events, this was like the first Tron player I ever saw. My deck was quite a bit different from what you see online, because there was some control, but not much, and there was no Tron. There was no Tron around, so I built my deck to try to beat Dredge, to beat Is It Phoenix, and to beat basically those sort of decks, and combo. There's a decent chunk of combo there. What else was there? There was some black-green Axe and stuff, but basically there was no Tron and not that much, very little control. So I took out things like Ceremonious Rejection, so I can make room for like more Grafdigger's Cages and Relic of Progenitus. And I didn't have Boomerang, like you all know, and I didn't have Echoing Truth either, because I didn't think it was really all that necessary in this field. There's some Grixis Death Shadow. So, you know, let's take a look at my deck. We want to see my deck? You want to see the deck? Let's go check out the deck. All right, let's do the sick, sketchy, on the bed deck tech. All right, let's start with the lands here. 20 lands. I went to 20 lands because I want to have some threat density in this deck. That was not Fairy Conclave, because there was a lot of... Well, because of the dredge decks and some combo decks, I didn't feel comfortable with. Well, I needed to make some cuts. I needed to put some counter spells and some interaction in here. So I decided to go down to 20 lands for this build. 1 Fairy Conclave. This was like my 20th land. Like I said, 20th land is always free, and there was still a decent chunk of attrition-based decks. So I want something like Fairy Conclave over, say, Tectonic Edge, but it was close. I could have went with Tectonic Edge because there was a lot of Titan Shift, Primeval Titan decks that were running around. So I guess 4 Mutavault, these 3 lands, and then 13 islands. We got our normal suite of creatures: 4 Benthic Biomancer, 4 Lord of Atlantis, 4 Master of the Pearl Trident, 4 Silvergill Adept, 4 Merfolk Trickster, 4 Master of Waves, and 2 Harbinger of the Tides. This was basically to reflect the Death Shadow decks. So I have Harbinger in here in the main deck because of the Death Shadow decks and the Is It Phoenix decks. And against any of the combo decks, I could at least flash this guy in. So that was the reasoning behind putting Harbinger of the Tides in the main deck. We've got, standard 4 Ether Vial, 4 Spreading Seas. But the 4 Deprive, this is to reflect... I think Deprive is good against Is It Phoenix. I think a few of them are okay against Grixis Death Shadow, but this is very, very good against any of the combo decks and the Titan Shift decks, or just the Scape Shift decks in general. There were I played against a few Bring to Light Scape Shift decks this weekend. That's sort of surprising. And it would still be good against Tron or Control if I was ever up against it, and there were certainly some control decks there. There was also humans at the very end of the weekend, but almost none at the beginning. So Deprive, I would say, was stronger earlier, got a little bit weaker later, because it's sort of dubious against spirits, but it did help me a little bit against spirits. And 2 Dismember, good against Death Shadow, and also very good against Is It Phoenix. Is It Phoenix was the deck I played against the most. You can use Dismember to kill Crackling Drake, Thing in the Ice. You can also even just hit an Arclight Phoenix. In a pinch, you're going to get dealt 3 damage anyway in the air, so just take 4. And yeah, they could get the Phoenix back, but it might require them refueling. They might need... If they're empty-handed, then whatever. It's going to be a lot harder to get that Phoenix back. So that was the main deck. That's what I eventually molded into. And then we go look at the sideboard. I mean, this is not the same list I played in my very first tournament, but this is basically the list I was playing for, I think, the rest of the weekend. 6 pieces of Graveyard Hate, 4 Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Relic of Progenitus, just for the Dredge decks. You need like 6 pieces of Graveyard Hate or you have no chance, and guess what? It didn't even help me all that much. In the 2 times that I played against Dredge, I got Grafdigger's Cage once, just once, and it was of no use to me because I did not have a good clock on the board and I just lost anyway. An extra Harbinger of the Tides, I would have had 2 of them. Like I had, turns out I only brought 1 Harbinger with me. I didn't bring a huge toolbox because I didn't know if I was going to play Modern side events, but if I could, I would have played the full 4 Harbinger in the list, taking out the Dismember. Dismember is just a bit pricey on my life total, having 3 of them in this deck. I just like Harbinger better. It would be more useful against humans, take less life damage against Is It Phoenix, but and you could say the same thing against Grixis Death Shadow, but Dismember is still a fine card against all those matchups anyway, so it did help me. 2 Cryptic Command, this did help me. It was just extra counterspells in all the matchups where I needed them. Cryptic Command also surprised a lot of people. They're like, Cryptic Command in Merfolk? I've never seen that before. Well, you should watch more of my videos. Thassa, God of the Sea for all the attrition-based matchups. Or just, it was a great filler card, really. I had to side out a bunch of cards because they might be dead. Like, you know, Spreading Seas is dead in a lot of the blue matchups. It was just a good card to just throw in there, like in the Bring to Life Scapeshift deck. Bring to Light Scapeshift deck. This was a good filler card. Spell Pierces was just good. Basically, I brought in Spell Pierce over the Ceremonious Rejection, because Ceremonious Rejection, I had 4 of them, but there's just like no Tron, and I didn't see... Actually, early in the weekend, I did not see any Amulet Titan decks, but later on in the weekend, there were Amulet Titan decks, but it was on the last day, and I just didn't want to change my deck. I still think Spell Pierce was pretty well positioned, so I was pretty happy with that. So, yeah, Ceremonious Rejection, and no Boomerang at all, but I didn't have to feel the wrath of Ensnaring Bridge all that much this weekend. So there was one more Modern event that I decided to skip because I had some fear of there being product shortage at the prize wall. Let's go check that footage out. I'll do the deck tech later, but basically the frustrating thing is they've ran out of English War of the Spark boxes. They actually run out of boxes completely. I still have 2 booster boxes worth of tickets with 1 event to go. Screw the event. I'm going to be here with all these other people waiting for the Chinese. They're going to bring Chinese boxes. So I'm just going to wait patiently for the Chinese box so I can exchange it for at least something. But it's pretty disappointing at the end of the day to hear that they ran out of prizing here at this GP. I mean, it happens, but why do you run out of boxes of cards? Why don't you have enough to supply all the tickets you're going to give out? I guess they don't know how many, whatever. So the giant line of people was eventually gotten through. They actually, through a pretty timely manner, was able to get everybody prize boosters, and I saw that by the end of the day they had many boxes of War of the Spark. The organizers did well, and I don't think there was any problem with anybody else who were still in side events having to get prizes. And if I knew that ahead of time, I would have played the last event. The problem is I had like an awkward number of tickets that if I got like 100, I would just get a bunch of loose boosters, more or less. So, you know, whatever. This event was not run by exactly Channel Fireball. It was run by Panda Events. And I could see in the organizers' faces, they were like really frustrated at each other. They knew they screw up, but they made good in the end. And I hope overall everybody is happy. So I'm not thrilled, but you know, getting boxes are better than getting no boxes at all. The problem with the Chinese boxes is like, this is going to be much harder to sell in Canada. Like, I intend to liquidate these damn things, but maybe I can get lucky and find a buyer. Anyone in Canada want Chinese boxes of War of the Spark? There it is. That's the final reward. We got four boxes of War of the Spark, 2 English and 2 Chinese. And I could say that the whole weekend overall was very satisfying. I had a lot of interesting games of Magic, and I was also very happy to meet so many fans. A lot of people. What's hilarious is that there's like a lot of people who just know me through looking up my opponent's archetypes. You know, whether they're looking up Boggles or they're looking up Tron or taking turns or something. That's how a whole bunch of people know me. So well whatever. That's good. Not everyone's for Merfolk. I should start like welcoming all the people trying to learn my opponent's deck. That should be good. So anyway, Grand Prix Taipei was good. I had fun, and I can't wait for the next GP, which is going to be Grand Prix Minneapolis. Going to be there with Team WoW. I'm going to bring Merfolk. The main event is Modern. I'm not going to miss the main event. You better not miss the main event, and I'm going to see you there.